Maybe we could just keep going with that, okay? Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. My name is Tony Fisher. We're excited to have you with us this morning on our annual question service. It actually might be multiple question services because you responded with a lot of great questions, and we couldn't fit them all in. So you still have a chance to send some in, and maybe we'll do this again. We welcome the Stu Shelton Trio this morning, Stu Shelton on piano, Scott Smith on bass, and Tony Vigilante on drums. They'll be asking the musical questions this morning. As usual, we have Daniel Goodsit and John Forsyth in the AV room, and I will turn this over right now to our wonderful worship associate this morning, Lena Neal.
Good morning, Tony. And good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. It's certainly good to be with you this morning. And as Tony said, I'm Lena Neal, and I'm your worship associate for today's service. If you're new to us, welcome. And we hope that you'll make yourself known in the comments section below the live stream so that we can say hello to you. And we also hope you might email our administrator at office@uuanaples.org. Actually, it's uunaples.org, so that we can include you in our regular news blasts, which relate all of the wonderful things that are going on at UUCGN. And now, we wanted to tell you about one of UUCGN's outreach programs. It is the Weekend Meals for Kids, and our appeal for financial support, which continues through the month of April. Thank you to those of you who have already contributed to this valuable program in the past, and to those who have continued to give your time volunteering to help shop for, pack, and deliver weekly bags of food to the 92 children who attend our 4 partner elementary schools. The food items we provide go a long way to carrying the students and their families over the weekend when no school meals are offered. The need is still great in the Naples area, and here's how you can help for the coming school year. We'd love to be able to fund meals at additional schools. You can sponsor a child for 1 school year of weekend meals for $250, or co-sponsor a child for $125, but whatever contribution you can make will be helpful. All donations are greatly appreciated. You can submit your donation by mailing a check to the church and listing weekend meals on the memo line. Or you can go to uunaples.org and click on the Serve Others. That's the tab at the top of the homepage in the drop-down box on Weekend Meals for Kids. Then you can use the Donate button to complete your transaction. And here are some thank yous we've received from some of the students. Wonderful photos. Wonderful thank yous. Going on, our Mindful Monday Forum and our wonderful Wednesday programming return next week. But don't miss the Progressive Voices Speak Out, that lecture series on Thursdays this week, as Jim Kinney continues to help us gaze from the perspective of the humanities through the windows of science. This week's presentation is entitled The New Physics, Gravity and the Subnuclear Zoo. Look for details for these and other upcoming events in this morning's Sunday News, or check our website. And now, let's settle ourselves into this time of worship with the morning's Prelude.
We come into our time together with eagerness and delight, with joys and sorrows and hopes to share, with questions, hoping to find answers, with ideas waiting to be heard. We gather on this beautiful day with courage and love, with minds open to possibility, hearts ready to heal, and hands prepared to help. We join in this community of all ages with wonder and curiosity, with songs to sing, with stories to tell, with the Spirit of truth guiding us on. Let's join in our chalice lighting response you'll see on your screen. May this flame stir our hearts and remind us of our mission to be truly welcoming, to grow in mind and spirit, and to widen the circle of peace, justice, and love. Let's join together in singing our opening hymn, number 354. If you have a hymnal, we laugh, we cry. We laugh, we cry, we live, we die. We dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our thoughts to give. We have our hearts to receive, and we believe that sharing is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a joy being together, and in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question truly is an answer.
Well, Reverend Tony, we've got some questions for you. As you can tell, this service is going to be conducted a little differently. And I just want to say to the congregation, you've asked some pretty tough questions.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
And so let's get started. So, Reverend Tony, what makes UUism different from other religions or denominations?
Well, Unitarian Universalism falls under the umbrella of liberal religion, which is just a way of saying that we believe that new truths, new ideas from science, from the world's wisdom, from our own experience, from earth-centered traditions are all continue to bubble up and are open to our understanding and our own seeking of new truths. So a liberal religion believes that religion itself should always evolve and always take into account understandings, and new ideas. So Unitarian Universalism falls under that umbrella. We mostly no longer fit under the umbrella of Christianity, although, as we'll hear a little bit later, some of our congregations certainly do. We exist on the very progressive side of liberal religion. We are not necessarily liberal politically, but our progressive ideas about possibilities in this world and change and growth individually and collectively, I think put us a little bit out on the outside fringe of that liberal religious umbrella.
Well, then what do we believe? Do you have any beliefs that set us apart from others?
Well, I mean, I think that we individually, Unitarian Universalists have a wealth of ways to think about themselves in the world. So we encourage the individual's search for a center that feels right to them. What we do is we support them in that journey and on a shared journey, a collective journey of understanding. So while encouraging each individual to find a truth that works for them, we also work with 7, I think, strong ethical principles that guide us on that journey.
Mm-hmm. And another question that comes up is, we still, though, even though we may be considered perhaps a bit more progressive in some areas, we still like to use words like worship, faith, sanctuary, while we have given up other aspects of, let's say, the more traditional religious words.
Right. And that's always a conversation in Unitarian churches especially, Unitarian Universalist churches especially. I think what we need to understand is that Unitarian Universalists, existing as we do in a culture that has been primarily a Christian culture, we have to learn to translate. We have to learn to understand what words mean to us. We've always had to do that. And I think we also have the opportunity to look back and think more broadly about terms. Worship, for instance, comes from the Old English worthship. What's worthy to pay attention to? What is worthy for us to center ourselves on? So when we worship together, we are thinking about what is calling us, what is moving us, what is making us think. So in that regard, worship works for me. We call this place a sanctuary. Sanctuary is simply a safe space. We create a sanctuary outside in our garden. We build sanctuaries for wildlife, for animals and birds. So we think about it as just a safe space for us to come into and enjoy each other on a Sunday morning or any time if you want to come in and sit.
That's really interesting, because I know in the church up north that I belong to, it is called a church, whereas here we prefer to say congregation. So are you also saying that sometimes the different places of worship make their own choices, or do we have any kind of leadership from another, from the association, the UUA association?
That's interesting. No, I mean, the Unitarian Universalist Association is an organization built to support the congregations. It's a very flat system. It's not a hierarchy. We don't look up to the UUA or anyone else. I think each congregation is autonomous in the way it decides what to do, where to go. Early on in this congregation's history, they were very intentional about naming it. Originally, it was a fellowship, and that has connotations with Unitarian Universalism about how congregations are formed. A fellowship was a small group of people hoping to form a community. And it had a structure in terms of financial support within the UUA. So this was a fellowship. When they moved beyond that and decided to broaden and to include professional leadership, they were intentional about the language that they chose. So congregation was what they wanted to use. There are UU societies and UU congregations and UU churches. That's where we are intentional. And I think anytime we want to be intentional about language, the congregation gets to choose. This is a democratic institution. So if we wish to have a conversation about whether to use worship or not, we could do that, I suppose.
But there may be other things that we want to spend our time and energies on.
Might be better to spend our energies on.
Yeah. And one of the things that often we're asked is that, we don't have any signs we don't have a cross, we don't have the stations of the cross, we don't have the Mogen David, we don't have many visual symbols as we might find in other churches in our sanctuary. Do we have any symbols that have really become UU symbols?
Well, I think I think that there are two things that sort of are symbolic of our faith. I mean, I think the hymnal is one of them. I mean, in this hymnal are hymns that have been rewritten to express a particular viewpoint, gender inclusive. So I think that the hymnal itself, and on the front of the hymnal is the symbol of our chalice, a circle and circle. This is reminiscent. This chalice and circle is reminiscent of the Universalist symbol, which was a cross offset off the center of the circle, indicating that there was much more out there in terms of a universal idea of religion and understanding. So we adopted a little bit of the Universalist symbolism. The chalice was developed by the Unitarian Service Committee during World War II when we sent folks to Czechoslovakia to help individuals and groups escape from Nazi-occupied territory, and we needed a symbol that sort of gave a sense of sanctuary for those people coming across, and this was a symbol that was designed for that purpose. And then it began to be used more and more in our congregations as time went on.
Well, and as we look at the podium, on the podium, I guess we see that very, very clearly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I think we've covered some of the basic questions, and
all right. Well, let's then take a little time and center ourselves into a time of sharing and meditation. And we'll sing together the hymn, What Wondrous Love Is This. We'll just do one verse of this. What wondrous love is this, O my soul, O my soul? What wondrous love is this, O my soul? What wondrous love is this that brings my heart such bliss and takes away the pain of my soul, and takes away the pain of my soul. So we enter this time of sharing, of joys and sorrows, and as always, this is the moment where I feel your loss most keenly. This time when we have an opportunity to share with one another those things that are of import to each one of us, our concerns, our sorrows, our wonders. This morning I want to share two things with you that come from the congregation. Lois and John Graydon have let us know that their daughter Alyssa's significant other, Tom, is now suffering from stage 4 cancer, and they're very concerned both for Tom and, of course, their daughter Alyssa. I think Lois and John are heading north to be of support to them. So our thoughts and our love goes with them. I also want to express our shared concern for Flo Beckler and her son Peter. Peter is undergoing treatments for cancer here in Naples, and as you know, Flo counts on Peter quite a bit. And we all love Flo. We miss her sitting in the front row every Sunday. So we send our love to Flo and our thoughts to Peter and his family as they struggle through this time. Grateful for all of you and all your journeys. If you have somebody that you are thinking about this morning, it could be yourself, it could be the person sitting next to you, it could be someone at a distance. If there's somebody in your life that you have concern about or you're feeling some joy, say the name out loud right now. If you feel like it, light a candle or express some feeling. Though we can't hear you, please know that we're with you. This time we share together every Sunday is meaningful. We've kept it in our order of service because it is so. And our thoughts are with you, and our love is with you on this morning. Let's center ourselves into a time of meditation. There are always questions, big questions with which we cannot know the answer. How large is this universe in which we live? How long will it last? Why did complex life spring forth on this planet just once in its 4 billion year history? Why do human beings need so urgently to love and be loved? And despite the need for love, why do we often do things that hurt others, even those to whom we're close? Why do we war with each other knowing we can only cause greater harm than we can possibly heal? Why is it, even when all our needs are met, that we can become so alienated or terribly bored or angry or lonely or frightened? Though the world holds much that we could not help loving if we could just stop and notice and let things speak to us. Why is it we human beings come to love things and devote all our energies to gaining access to things patently bad for us, even poisonous to us, like drugs or alcohol, or to acquiring more money than we need, or far more power over others than anybody needs, or stature or fame, when none of these things turns out to be worth what we have to do to get them? How can it be that every person we know, even those we hold dearest, are more than we will ever know? We can never know even ourselves. How is it we can know deep within that we've hurt another, but never let that knowledge near enough the surface to act? There are always questions, big questions for which we cannot know the answer. How is it we so often forget we live all our lives in mystery? We don't need a God to be humbled before the mystery of creation or humankind. We simply need to remember that our lives can never be as orderly as we would want, and that we need one another more than we care to admit. How is it that only in these rare moments of humility do we feel our deepest yearnings? Let's spend a few seconds in silence together.
Well, are you ready for round two?
I just want to listen to these guys play some more.
I know it. Did that bring back memories?
Yeah.
Anybody remember the movie?
Yeah.
What's it all about, Alfie? Wonder. Yeah, that was a couple of decades ago.
Probably, yeah.
Well, ready for round two.
Here we go.
Okay. You know, last week, Reverend Tony, in your sermon, you said that UUs don't believe in original sin. If that's true, then what might UUs think about sin and evil?
I don't think we have any illusions about human nature. I think at least I can speak for myself, understand that we are born with great possibilities for good and for evil. And I think partly there's nature involved, and we're born with certain characteristics. I mean, looking at my two boys, I know that they sort of arrived with a personality, so that we have some sense of people having a particular nature when they're born. And I think we have to understand that sometimes nature doesn't work, and people are born with a tendency or a feeling that life isn't for them, or that they need to control, or that they need to have power. So the reality of human nature is that there's a spectrum. Nurturing makes a huge difference in a person's life. And I think Unitarian Universalists believe in that possibility of nurturing an individual towards the good. And we've evolved to be supportive of one another in our family and in our tribe. And Unitarian Universalist understanding of that is to broaden the family and the tribe to be more inclusive. So while we don't believe in original sin, we don't necessarily believe we're all good either. We're not born all good. We affirm and promote is one of our ethical principles. We affirm and promote the dignity and worth of every person. That's an aspirational statement, meaning that we approach each individual initially with a hope and a sense that they are worthy of our attention and our love. We may be proved otherwise. I had a friend I may have told this story before, but a friend in our northern congregation, before I became a minister, who when he heard that I was becoming a minister, came up to me and said, "What do you think about that first principle? Affirming and promoting the inherent worth and dignity of every person." And I knew he had an agenda when he asked the question. He was one of the American soldiers that freed one of the concentration camps. And he had lost at that moment his sense of the dignity and worth of every person because of what these people had to endure. But we believe that at least aspirationally, that every person has the inherent possibility to form, to grow, to contribute to the common good. And that's if we have a positive and optimistic outlook, that's it. We recognize the breadth of human experience and human behavior, but we choose, as individuals, as collective group, to focus on what we can do to nurture each other and the larger community towards the common good.
Reverend Tony, it almost sounds a bit naive to think that we can actually affect change when there are so many, I don't know if I want to call it evils going on in the world around us. We hear about the shootings of people out on the street for no reason. We hear about the bombings. We hear about schools being invaded and teachers and children being killed. How can we even think about addressing that as you use?
I think that's one of the hardest questions that anybody in any faith tradition has to answer. And I think that the reality is we are combating evil in the world. The evil in the world exists where people choose to exert power, where people choose to separate and diminish from others and diminish other people. That's sin and evil in our estimation. The idea of separating us and dividing us up into categories and giving us qualities and putting us on a hierarchy. That's sin and evil. And it exists both individually in our lives as we judge people, and that's what we do. We're often judgmental about people. And collectively, and when we think about this culture that we live in that has been for 400 plus years a very racist society, and we're struggling now to come out of that, but it's hard work. The only way I see us actually finding ways to change is to reflect individually on what our experience in the world is, how we are reacting, and acknowledging quite openly and seriously together, individually and together, where we find ourselves along that spectrum, and to begin to think about what it takes, what first step we need to take to move closer to what we consider our hopes for the world. We all have hopes for, and we'll talk about this a little later too, but what step can I take today, right now, to improve both my situation and the situation of others in the world? So to combat the evil, we have to be intentionally healing in things that we do.
So I'm not sure if you've addressed this, but it was one of the questions clearly. If human beings are born with original sin, are we born with original responsibilities to others?
Well, I think so. I mean, I think that each person has to sort of think that question through. It's a significant question. Are we born with a sense of responsibility to the larger whole of humanity? I was brought up with that sense that it was important. This is what I was taught, that I needed to leave the world a better place than when I arrived. And in doing that, and if we do that collectively, then we're moving along that sort of line of a positive advancement. And if you look at the arc of history, though it seems incredibly slow, there's much less violence in the world today than there ever has been. And so we have a sense that we're moving. And our role is as individuals in this time and in this place to continue that process. I think we have a responsibility, if you think about us evolutionary, in an evolutionary sense, as members of a family and a tribe. In primitive times, we had responsibility to find food, to nurture each other, to guide each other, and that's our evolutionary history. And I think that we have to carry that forward beyond the family, beyond the local tribe, and out into the world.
I know this could lead us down to some other questions, such as our rights. For instance, don't I have a right not to wear a mask? Why should I wear a mask if it infringes on me? Why do I have to do that to help others? I don't get it, some might say.
Oh, this is great. Yeah, we could go down this road a long, long way. Yeah. I mean, I think Unitarian Universalists historically, not along that particular line necessarily, because we believe in science and we understand the science of wearing a mask, and we follow that sense of safety. On the other hand, Unitarian Universalists have been particularly individualistic in their ideas about, well, what I can think and what I feel is right. And I think that, too, in our history, that sometimes grabs at us. And I think we could do a better job of understanding ourselves as community. We'll talk about this. Instead of as individuals. So putting the community first more often than we do might be a good thing.
So sometimes we are conflicted. Is that right?
I think you could safely say that. Do we want to ask another musical question?
Oh, yes. Let's ask another musical question of the Stu Shelton Trio.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. Well, Reverend Tony, here we go. Third round.
Final round.
Yeah, okay, final round. Okay. You know, we use this term beloved community, and we also use the word love, and they're often used very frequently among leaders, UU leaders and congregations. But, you know, they can sometimes really sound empty. They can be like empty-sounding words that just get used too frequently. How do you define them?
I think, first of all, I would say that we have a breadth of understanding and ideas and ways of living, ways of working in our congregation. And there are folks who want to roll up their sleeves and jump in and do something, and that's how they respond to the world. And large ideas don't matter. They're just going to do what they do. And we hold those people with great awe and wonder and joy. I think there are other folks who need inspiration and motivation to move forward. So I think both of those terms sort of fall into that category of motivational language. The term beloved community was coined, I think, by the American philosopher, idealist, semi-pragmatist Josiah Royce in the mid-19th century, to talk about he was an idealist, so he was thinking about, all right, so beyond what we see and what we see in reality, is there an ideal that is behind that? And he talked about beloved community. And Martin Luther King Jr. picked up on that. The term beloved community was something that was being tossed about a lot when King was a student at Boston University in the last century. So he picked up on it, and he sort of put it into the context, a very real context of not ideal, but what could we create here on this planet now together? A world where there is justice and equity for all, regardless of who or what gender or what ethnic background or what color their skin, that we could all enjoy the same privilege, the same sense of peace and connection and freedom. Freedom from want, freedom from fear. Creating that community where everyone is held in the same light was his dream. And I think when we talk about it, I don't see it as an empty ideal. I see it as something, yes, it's something that we can envision. It may be something we don't see in our lifetime, and we probably won't, obviously, but it's something we can work towards. It's an ideal that we can work towards. And I think that's why it has weight. And the way we get there, here's the answer to the second piece of that, is through love. Now, all the great religious leaders have talked about this, especially Jesus of Nazareth. We talked about Jesus a couple of weeks ago. The sense of the fact that, Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within and among you. And I think for me, and I can only answer this for myself, the kingdom of heaven is that sense of love that I could feel inside myself for you, for others, and the kingdom of heaven among us is that spirit of creativity and work and joy moving toward beloved community that we can all sense when things are working well along those lines. So love in that sense. So let me take a little step aside here. Okay. And I know that this isn't something that necessarily everybody, maybe, I think that each one of us have had a moment in our lives when we are just sort of full of life and love and exuberance, somewhere, sometime, hopefully. And we wish we could have captured that moment. And I think, for me, I've experienced moments of wonder both in nature and in community where I'm just full of that sense of connection and love. That feeling is real. And if I can bring that into my everyday, somehow, move beyond and outside myself, which is not an easy thing to do, I am bringing that spirit of love into the world, and I'm adding that. It's not a zero-sum game. I'm adding that into the mix. And I think that if each one of us can try to remember and bottle that sense of fullness, of wholeness, of joy, of wonder that we have felt at some point in our lives and put it into our every moment, that's the spirit of love that I'm talking about.
Or maybe into some of our moments.
Into some of our moments, right, exactly.
I mean,
Lena, that absolutely. We can only do what we can do. We are all, affected by life, by our joys and our sorrows. We can't do it every moment.
I'm kind of reminiscing or thinking about Csikszentmihalyi. You may recall he coined the term flow, that when we're at our best and we're focused, we're in flow.
We're in the flow.
Yeah. And that is something that certainly elite athletes often can achieve. But I think that may be something that even us common folks might strive for every now and then. I had it for 2 seconds yesterday when I was riding my bicycle.
Right.
So. Right.
And I think too, we feel that, and when we're feeling that, we're not in here.
That's right.
We are
somewhere.
We're outside of that ego, and I understand Unitarian Universalists are very deeply intellectual people for the most part, and it's hard to move there, but it's absolutely possible. And flow is a good way to put it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we may have time for just another quick question. Oh, sorry, none of these are quick. So we're going to have.
That's why we're going to have more of these.
That's a good point. Let me just ask the question: how do you see us living in a world, though, that is full of intentional harm, where there are, in fact, forces that intend to harm us as humans? How do we live in that kind of an environment?
Well, yeah, that's one. That's a whole series of sermons, I think. But I don't know if it's glib or not. The short answer is that we live a life of intentional healing. That we treat each other kindly, fairly, with love. The kind of love I talked about, and we do that as much as we can, because there is intentional evil out there in the world, and we have to meet that with something. We can't sit in our armchairs and expect it to go away. It's not going to happen. And I think we decided that we had to do a separate service on justice, because Unitarian Universalists and justice, that's a big topic. And why are we such a justice-oriented organization? And the reason is that we don't think that we can sit in our armchairs and expect the world to improve if we don't do something about it. So that's why, anyway.
I guess that's a good segue into the next set of questions to be asked at another time.
Right. What do we have next on the agenda here?
Well, I think it's time to ask about helping to support this congregation and all that we are.
All right, you're on.
So now is the time to express our gratitude for this community, its work, its vision, and all the ways in which it nourishes our lives, from its welcoming doors and sheltering walls to its good and generous people, from the sanctuary to the memorial gardens to the outreach in the wider community. For all these things and for all the ways it works magic in our lives, the morning's offering for the ongoing mission of this congregation will be gratefully received. Please consider mailing a contribution today, or maybe you're like me. I have it automatically deducted from my bank account. The address is here on the screen, or you can go to www.uunaples.org, where you'll find the donate button and where you can find out a lot more about this congregation.
I want to thank you all for your questions, for your thoughts that you sent me this past week. I was encouraged by the questions. It means you're thinking, you're wondering, and I'm appreciative of that. My question for you is often the question that we hear during our pledge drive. And we ask sometimes, what does this place mean to you? And I think I'd like to ask that question in a different frame. A community like this one is here to support you wherever you are in your life's journey, whether you're on a high or a low, whether you're young or old. A community like this one can hold you in any of those moments. It is a community of friends, of people who agree, sometimes disagree, like a family in a way, but more. And it is especially this community, I feel, and I think most of our congregations are like this. A community has an inherent power that rests there until it's realized by the whole, where they begin, as we talked about, Lena, to begin to feel the flow together and begin to move towards something, towards creating something more than just what's here. So moving beyond our walls. And my question for you is to think about what that might look like, what that might mean. We have a wonderful program. We highlighted it earlier, weekend meals. Bill McCormick has created some incredible summer programs for area youth, Emerson Academy, and is sponsoring. We're helping to sponsor another program that grew out of that called Book Buddies. We have great relationships with the NAACP and the Coalition of Immokalee Farm Workers. But we have more power in this congregation to do more, recognizing that each one of us is at that place along the journey, that we can each contribute to our own ability in our own time. People out in the front lines, people back supporting, people sending their good wishes when they can't do either of those. This congregation has an inherent power, and my question for you is, what does that look like for you? And my closing words, my benediction today, comes from the Reverend Lisa Friedman. And she asks this: if you had but one wish, what would it be? Take your time thinking about it. So much is at stake. An end to all suffering, a stop to all violence, a solution to poverty and all its ills. Would you wish for love, for forgiveness, or for healing? Would you wish the world joy or the wisdom to change? Would you wish to understand everything or know less than you do? Take your time thinking about it. So much is at stake. For a wish is a thought, and a thought is an idea, and ideas lead to commitment, and a commitment cries out for action. A wish can be a dangerous thing, sometimes daring, and it need not be witnessed by the stars to come true. Let's just be glad that we're not given just one wish in our lives, but many. Let's be grateful not for wishful thinking, but for the discipline of the thoughtful wishing that can lead to change. What would your wish be for yourself and for this community? Go in peace. Go in love. Have a wonderful day.